Traditional two-piece production molds for soft plastics are machined using engineering drawings and a CNC and a block of aluminum to cut the molds. I want to show you today a way that you can actually pour your own production molds for injecting soft plastics using Alumilite's VAC 50. This process enables you to make any lure design that you choose for a fraction of the time and cost. You can create your lure using any type of medium that you want. Here we're using Sculpt 3, which is just a polymeric clay that is sculpted and then baked to harden. Once they harden, you're able to clean them up, sand them, and get them ready to be molded. Here we're making a 4.5 inch drop shot one. We're just sculpting up 4 different variations of this, and we'll sand them up and clean them, so they're very similar. But if we wanted the exact same lure, we'd simply make a 2-piece mold of it, cast 4 or 5 exact duplicates of our one original, and then set those down to have a multi-cavity mold. So we start with a bed of synthetic modeling clay, press the worms halfway down, and clean the parting line up so it's very clean and very straight. The cleaner your parting line, the less flash you'll have in your soft plastic lures. Once we have the lures clayed up, we need to create the sprue and the gates for the lures. To do this, we've used a piece of hot melt, some 051 wire to gate the tails, and a little bit of a handle from some disposable paintbrushes to act as the sprues to fill the head of the lures. Then we simply make our mold box, mold release it with the UMR. This will prevent the VAC 50 from bonding to our Sculpt 3 originals. Now we're ready to mix up the VAC 50. When you first open the lid, you'll see that the material has separated. The atomized aluminum powder and the fillers that are used in the VAC 50 settle to the bottom. Agitate these back up and continue to mix it until it's a creamy, smooth consistency. Then simply mix the resin 1:1 by weight, mix it thoroughly, and you're ready to pour it. Before pouring, we'd recommend taking a disposable paintbrush and brushing on the first layer over the parts to make sure we don't trap any air bubbles against our lures. Once we've coated them, now we're ready to just come back and pour the remaining VAC 50 over the originals. This will help the air bubbles rise up away from the part and make sure we don't have any air trapped along our surface of our mold. Allow the VAC 50 to cure for a few hours. Remove the mold base and remove the clay. Then take the time to clean up all the clay off of your originals and off of the mold. It's very important to make sure the edge where the lure touches the mold is completely clean of any clay. This will make a much cleaner parting line and a lot less cleanup on the lures that you inject. Next, we want to add some locators. This will make sure that the two halves of the mold align perfectly. Here we're just using a drill bit and making impressions of approximately 1/4 of an inch into the mold. Then we mold release this well using UMR and make sure it's clean before we're ready to start pouring the next half. Once again, we make sure that VAC 50 is agitated. We measure out equal amounts, mix it thoroughly, and we're ready to pour. Once again, we'd recommend brushing on the first layer just to make sure there's no air entrapment next to our lures. And then finish pouring. Wait another 2 to 3 hours for the VAC 50 to cure, and you're ready to demold. The trick to demolding is finding the seam line. You may have to take off some of the flash where the VAC 50 floated in between the mold box and the first half of the mold. Use a screwdriver or a putty knife and tap gently with a hammer to pop the seam line. The two halves should separate fairly easily. Now you simply remove the original, the hot melt, the wire, and the small pieces of the paintbrush that were used for the sprue. Once you've removed all the pieces, sand the edges with a file or a belt sander. you're now ready to start pouring. Once you've cleaned the edges up, make sure the mold fits together well and that the locators aren't catching anywhere. If they are, simply use a drill bit to open them up a little bit more. Next, we want to use a drill bit, which is the exact same size as the nozzle for the injector, to open up the injection port. This will allow the injector to fit perfectly into our tool. Next, we'll clean the mold out, spray a light coat of UMR, and we're ready to start pouring baits. We melt up our soft plastic and inject it into our tool. A few short minutes later, when the Alumisaw is cooled, we're ready to demold. The entire process for making the multi-cavity mold took approximately 8 hours, and that's with the VAC 50 cure time of 3 hours for both the first half and second half of the mold. This process serves as that intermediate step between hand pouring open molds and going into full-blown production of injecting closed aluminum molds. You can also use the same exact process for doing a single cavity. The weight of the multi-cavity mold was approximately 2 pounds, which equates to approximately $12 to $15 worth of VAC 50, depending on which size you buy it in, the quart kit or the gallon kit. If you have questions whether this process is right for a lure that you'd like to make, simply give us a call. We'd be more than happy to answer your questions.